Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and Happy New Year, because right about now we are into the year 2025. Phoebe, greetings to you first.
Greetings to you all.
And Mohammed, greetings and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you from Bahrain to everyone who's watching and listening to this.
And let's just say that we hope that for everybody, this year is a year of high achievement, of success, of happiness and health throughout the world. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Amen to that. Yes.
And what would be wrong with this being the best year ever? So, Phoebe, what do you think we should talk about today?
I think we should, as you mentioned, how can we make this year best in our life, in our work, and how can we challenge that? So, as a leader, how can we challenge the status quo from last year to make this year better? What can we do?
Hang on, why can't we just keep doing what we did last year and do it every year the same? Why can't we do that?
Uh, you know, if we go back to the past, yes, we can look into the past, but how can we do it better? And that is where innovation comes in. That is where change and transition happens. So, for example, I was just reading about Twitter the other day. Now, I had that image of Elon Musk coming with a sink to the Twitter headquarters saying that let that sink in. And what I thought was initially, I was of the thought process that how is he going to do that? And how is he going to reduce the staff? Again, in this case, I'm bringing that. How can we have a lesser manpower and work on the platform? And so, as a user of Twitter in the past, I have not seen much change, but this last year was a year in which I have seen number of innovational process happening in that platform. So a change of challenging the status quo and bringing in new things. So in our life also, in our work also, in our often we rely on let us do the practices as in the past, but I want to challenge all of us. How can we do it differently? What can this challenge look like for us leaders?
But one of the big changes with Mr. Musk and his social media was he called it X, no longer Twitter.
Yeah.
X. So, Mohammed, what do you think about this?
Of course, when we switch to a new year, every year, we don't actually throw everything, in the trash. We just, ponder and reflect on our year and say, okay, how can I do this better? So I totally agree. We will do the things. Of course, we cannot abandon everything we have done because it got us here. But because based on our experience, we now are more experts on how to do it better. There's a Zen Buddhist saying that says, be the scientist of your own experience. So your own experience, you hold a PhD in your own experience. So work on making it better and different. So I totally agree with our episode's topic today.
It's kind of emblematic, I guess, or it's a key point to notice as we're talking about the change and the importance of change. I see that this year, 2025, is the start of the new generation. So babies born in this year will be called a different gen. Have you heard this one already? Gen.
No.
No more Gen Y, no more millennials, so the ones that are born from this year until I think the year 2038 will be called Gen Beta. I think it's Beta, not Alpha. We got that one, Beta. But here's one really interesting point that I heard. These children, these people born in as Gen Beta, that is born from the 1st of this month, January onwards, will only have known a world in which AI exists.
Mm.
They'll only know that's all. They won't have lived in a time when there was no AI. So the AI, as they grow, is going to be an important part of their development, an important part of the way they live their lives. Let me just let you into a little secret. When I was born, no AI. There was no computers. You know, that we have come so far in these years. You know, I remember sitting watching the man land on the moon. The very first time that man landed on the moon, I was sitting watching it with my father. My father at that stage was 75. And what he had seen and lived through from when he was a young boy was significant in terms of the change in the way we lived, what we did. He lived at a time when they had horse and carts as their transport. Motor vehicles did not really exist very much. So his life was one of enormous change. My life has been one of enormous change. We've now got this little thing called the internet, for instance. We've got computers, which are an essential part of our lives. Now, coming back to the point that Phoebe made about the importance of challenging the process. We know, those of us who are advocates and champions of the leadership challenge and the 5 practices, we know that the 3rd practice is challenge the process. It's a very important practice. So much so that I can reveal to you now that when the 5 practices were first being put together by Jim Cousins and Barry Posner, with all the research that they were doing, the first practice was going to be challenge the process. Because of all the research that was coming back, they were seeing that this was something which exemplary leaders were doing. They were challenging the process, looking for new ways to do things. We've got to find a better way. This is 40 years ago. And they thought this must be the first practice. And then they thought, nah, well, we really should be having model the way as the first. They should be modeling the way overall. Okay, so that's how model the way became number 1, and then looking to the vision for the future. But challenge the process is so important. And I think that so many people in the corporate world still say, well, it's worked so long, we'll leave it that way. Why change it if it's working well? We'll just leave it be. And yet, my mantra almost is when we've finished something, a job, a task, anything, how can we do it better? And get the team to work on better ways of doing things. They've got the intelligence, the smarts, the way. Let them come up with how can we do it better. Gentlemen, let me have your thoughts on challenge the process.
You know, I was just reading something in the other day, and there was a line which struck me. Quite often, leaders prefer status quo. And if you love status quo in this AI and this agentic AI world, we are going into a storm, and that storm is called the status quo.
Yeah.
So how can maintaining the status quo is going to be a challenge? What can you do differently? And that is where the challenge the process is something which every leader should be looking into.
Every leader, always. Mohammed.
I think every person, every individual actually always challenges the status quo. If your car isn't working well, you challenge the process and you go and fix it and add something. If your routine isn't working in favor of your health, you wake up to this and you change. Actually, every individual challenges the process every day. And that's why we are alive and existing. Otherwise, we will perish, you know. However, when it comes to others, influencing others, we always have this notion that I want to change things, but the other side wouldn't accept. Like I'm the leader and my team would resist. The team also thinks the same. like a member of the team says, I wish this new leader will do things differently, but I'm afraid to talk to him because actually we are all on the same bandwidth. What's funny is when it comes to interacting with each other, challenging the process becomes something weird, difficult, mountain. But the leadership challenges this actually with challenge. Yeah.
Let me give you a specific example that's because always I think when we can, first of all, share the concept and have people understand the importance of any concept. But then we give some examples of how this is enacted in real corporate life. Quite some years ago, I was working with a gentleman in Oman who was the financial controller at this organization. And what each team member in the accounts department had, and maybe there's 15, I'm not sure, 10 or 15, maybe. I'm putting that figure out there. It might be, it doesn't matter. He said, we're going to change what we have. And what we had was that each team member had their own printer by their desk. Really good. I've got to print something, push the button, it prints. He thought, this is costing us money. So he went to the printer company and said, I want to change this and I want to do away with everybody having their own printer, have one printer in the department. What can you do for us? So the printer company said, well, we will take your printers and basically give you another really wonderful printer that does everything, and we'll take the ones that you've got back. No charge, right? That's already that's a starting point for them. Then he said to the people in the accounts department, okay, I've got this, we're having this new thing. Oh, no, don't take my printer. Oh, no. And they started coming up with reasons why they couldn't have their own, what they needed their own printer, which was costing money to have all of these 10 or 15 printers. Oh, when they then settled down, in fact, there were people saying, but others will be able to get my printing. No, you'll have your own password. You put your password into the printer, it prints only your material. Oh, okay. But we need to have green copies for certain documents. Okay, there's a second tray. The green paper will be in the second tray. So everything that they came up with to challenge this, there was an answer to. Everything. But they were in their comfort zone with their own little printer, printing what they needed to print. Talked about saving in the region of 5,000 Omani rials over a period of time, but by doing this one change. People resisted it because they were comfortable with what they had. When they accepted it and went with it, they saw how easy it was and the money that was being saved. He was part of a group, and there were about 20 operating companies in this group in Bahrain. In Oman. And I said, you should share what you've done with every other financial controller in the group, that they do the same thing. And what you're likely to do is to see a cost saving to the group of something like 50,000 Omani rials a month. It was significant. It was this huge saving. But when people went, oh, no, don't take it. He did it. They then were very comfortable with the change. People resist change because they like the system that they're in. The status quo, as Bibi has said. I think that leaders must be encouraging people to think of other ways to do things. Leaders.
I think that this is a fantastic example of innovation process by challenging what you shared, Graham. And I think leaders should focus on two things in this part. One is, what are the opportunities for me here?
Yeah.
And what am I willing to experiment? What ways I can experiment? And this search for opportunities, like for example, I will say, how many of the team members are willing to challenge? If they are not, how can I equip them? And that is where the leadership challenge can be coming in handy as a learning tool. How can I help my members to think differently?
Yeah.
And make it more inclusive in the process.
Yeah.
And we know that when awareness is there in the system, it improves the potential for change, challenging the status quo. But that awareness has to be developed, and that is where leadership practices comes in.
Absolutely. So it's up to the leader to build a culture which welcomes change being suggested by any person in the team at any time. The leader is
I,
not the one who has got the most clever, smart, brilliant, genius ideas. He might think so, but it's not. You've got a team of people who've all got intelligence, they're all smart, they know the practices that they're doing, the work that they're doing, and quite often they can come up with a better way of doing it. I've seen many examples of this. Mohammed, I want to come to you, but let me just quickly share this one. Please remember that thought. Phoebe, you remember quite some years ago, we were doing some work with our bank. And when I
Yeah.
was challenging the process, senior level gentleman, I won't say how senior, he wasn't at the top, the senior man said, no, we can't. We're a bank. We can't challenge. Banks have had to challenge the process in order to stop fraud occurring. Banks are challenging the process daily to stop the money being ripped off and taken away. And banks it's constant change. He also, and this one's really surprised me, he said it's like medical profession. They can't change. Where would we be now if the medical profession was still using old equipment, old theories, old ideas, instead of now robotic surgery, which is in many cases non-invasive? Of course, we're being careful. Of course, we are in the medical profession and in banks, but we've got to challenge the process to find better ways. Mohammed.
and just before a leader thinks that it's a momentous thing and a gigantic thing, you can introduce change in small steps gradually if your team is not acquainted with it. And also, you don't have to start with yourself. That's the best part. You can encourage your team to do the changes themselves, acknowledge changes they have done, question things, just question things. Why can't you do it the other way? Why do you have to do it this way? Oh, really? Can I do that? Yeah, you can. I remember in one of my patrols in my company, I visited a department as a safety patrol, and I talked to the staff. I said, "What's the problem?" They raised an issue. I said, "Okay, have you done something about it?" They said, "No, we have gone through the proper usual channels. We raised it in the system, and the concerned person will come because we are not from maintenance. We don't know how to do this." I said, "But you know what's the solution?" He said, "Yes." Did anybody solve it? They said 3 months, nobody have, and the hazard is still there. I said, "Do you know the solution?" They said, "We know, but are we authorized to do it?" I said, "Yes, by me." What? Actually, I'm not their boss. I told them, "Do you have the paint? Do you have the brush? Get them and do it, finish." So after 2 hours in my office, I received the call. They said, "Can you come, Mr. Mohammed, and see what we've done?" They were proud that they have done the change. And I told them, "Okay, now log this again in the system that you have taken action. Because if there's a hazard, you should take action. You should not wait for someone else." Guess what? 2 weeks on, it went viral. Another department also reported to me that we also, based on that, took action of another hazard, and we did not wait for the concerned person to do it. We are concerned. The hazard is in our department. How come we wait for someone? Now, mind you, it is a bit to bending the rules because maintenance should do the things, not us, all right? Guess what? The head of the company knew about this after some time and he blessed it. Although there is some bending in the rules there. So small changes introduced, and you empower others can change the culture because that's the word I picked from you, Graham. I took a long time, but so don't be afraid of change. You don't have to do it. They can do it and you can acknowledge it.
But
You
this
can acknowledge it.
comes from building a culture where everybody knows that their ideas and suggestions are welcomed and are listened to.
Yes.
That's critical. That's critical. Instead of it going to the concerned person who isn't concerned, otherwise he would read the memo and we would fix the problem. So, yeah, great example. Empower others to come up with ideas. and come up with brilliant ideas for the organization and the team. Phoebe.
Yeah, I think I want to quote James M. Kuzuz here. He has said, the quote start now, "The domain of leaders is the future. The work of leaders is change. The most significant contribution leaders make is not to today's bottom line. It is to the long-term development of people and institutions so they can adapt, change, prosper, and grow." Quote ends.
Beautiful.
Whose quote is that?
Sorry, Graham?
What was that?
Who
It
said
is by James M. Kuzuz in the Leadership Challenge, How to Make Extraordinary Things Happen in Organizations.
Cousins. Really? He said that. He's a very wise man. Oh, thank you, Jim. Great. This is so important. Leaders looking to the future. That's the vision. Sure, they're taking us there. But they look at how, and not only how we're going to get there, but the changes that are going to happen to get us there and how excited we're going to be along the way. Oh, boy. And of course, in the Middle East, changes. So many, over the years, so much has happened. It's accepted in so many ways that change is going to occur, right?
And
Yeah,
also,
I just want to give an example of, sorry, Mohammed, this new year, there is, usually we see fireworks, and this time we saw drone show. The way in which the display using technology is changing the way in which what we can create using drones. And there are organizations, I was just seeing another YouTube video in which in China, drones are, or robotic drones are delivering food or groceries to various apartments. So the things are changing fast. And what are we doing as leaders in our organization? What opportunities are we trying to change? What opportunities are we experimenting with? What kind of AI tools am I providing to my team members? How are they created or trained in that space? What can we do?
Yes.
and I think because we are talking about leadership challenge, it's not only about you changing, but it's empowering others to change, encouraging others to change. So it has two folds. Just before anyone who listens to this thinks that the leader comes like Elon Musk and with the sync or with the change, and I don't want this, I want this. Okay, that's a very unique case, and it's a good example, all right? However, you don't have to do the change. If you only own the change, only you, then you are also only you responsible for it. For example, if anything goes wrong, you did it, you did it. How about inspire a shared vision, right? How about both of us, both sides own the change? You can go ahead and change your office place. I don't mind changing your desk. Are you comfortable? No, you can go ahead. No problem. You have my permission to do that. So we both own the change. This is what the leadership challenge wants us, not the authoritarian leader who says, this my way or the highway. All right. So that is also very important in the context of our episode and the model we are talking about, the leadership challenge.
I was just thinking as you're saying that recently, kind of recently, there was a major change globally in the way people in the corporate world worked. And this was brought about by a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Happened, as we know, was stay at home, don't come to the office. So then we had to adapt to this situation where we're doing what we're doing now, when people were then perhaps overwhelmed by Zoom meetings and other such parts of the way we're operating. And it took a while for some companies to really get used to this and for people to find that this was a good way to work. And at the time, I was working with an HR director of a company in Saudi. And I said to her, so how is this change happening? She said, we saw the possibility of something like this after we were at the HR conference, the HRM conference in the US the previous year. And we worked, the HR department worked on a plan for if anything ever happened like this, that's what we would do. So we were prepared for it. That this totally new way of working, we put things into place really quickly. And I asked her specifically about things like, well, what about recruitment and how you handle that? No, we had it all handled. We covered everything. And so that change was made because they had anticipated, but others had to get used to it. And that took a little while for some people to get. Now they love, in many cases, love it. And the management are saying, get back into the office because they're paying a lot of money on rent. And also, we are missing the corridor conversations and interactions that people importantly should be having. But this happened because of something which was out of everybody's control for the pandemic. And we had to make changes. We had to work differently and we had to work effectively. So that's where I hope out of that people accepted that change can happen and we should be prepared and we should be able to come up with ideas that make it work, to think about ways to get better results. And we should do that as a constant thing all the time.
And I will say my last word. I like a quote, but I don't remember the quote, who said it. So that's my last. Successful people, in this case leaders, successful leaders do not do different things. They do things differently. So that's also a good motto for us leaders for 2025. All the best and Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Phoebe, one last word from you. You can
again, when we challenge the process, make sure that you are enabling others and also you are encouraging the heart, because that is crucial. And without those elements or those practices visible, and it is your responsibility to model that in the process. So model the way so that you enable others to act and encourages the heart. And greetings of a wonderful year ahead.
I'm going to give all leaders listening to this, a challenge. What would life be like for you if you, as a leader, changed your leadership behaviors positively by a factor of only 10%? What sort of different world would you be living in 1 year from now? Gentlemen, I thank you very much, and I wish you, both of you, a fantastic year ahead, as I do wish the same for everybody who's joining us to be with us on this discussion that we have every week, and we look forward to having you with us again next week. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a great week and challenge the process.
Happy New Year. All the best.